All right, welcome everybody, welcome. My given name is Sam McCracken. I'm an enrolled member of the CNAY Sioux tribe from the great state of Montana. Welcome everybody to our fourth section of Champions for Change. And I'm excited to be here to welcome you all here. A little bit about my background. I am the general manager and visionary of a program at Nike called N7. I created the program back in 2000, which would then give access to Nike product to tribal communities so they can use it as incentives to promote physical activity. And it's evolved into a full-fledged brand, trademark, and a foundation that has contributed in excess of $4 million back to inspire Native youth to be physically active. So that's a little bit about my background, but it's not about me here today. I'm going to start off by telling a brief story. So about 5 years ago, I received a phone call. Actually, it was a voicemail. And it caught me kind of a little bit off guard because I would be wondering why former Senator Byron Dorgan would be calling Sam McCracken. And he called me and he explained to me that he was putting together an organization called the Center for Native American Youth to address some of the challenges our kids face and to elevate some of the great things that our children do in our Native communities. And after we had a brief conversation on the phone, I was immediately on board and asked him how could I help. And I started off as an advisory board member and then most recently an executive committee member, and committed myself to this organization. I don't sit on any other boards anymore. I focus on this. I still chair the N7 Fund, but from an external perspective, this is a very important organization for me, and I want to thank you guys all for being here because of the great stories you're going to hear today. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the man, but I get the distinct honor to introduce the founder of the Center for Native American Youth, and a good close friend. I call him my friend and a colleague, and a champion himself. So he created this organization to really start to highlight, as he'll tell you, some of the great stories that happen in our communities, but then bring shine some light on some of the things that probably aren't so great that happen in our communities. And so it's really important that we have someone from that level of distinguishedness to be able to help us do that. So while in the Senate, he was the vice chair of the 109th Congress, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs on the 110th and 111th Congress. And he has brought light to some great challenges that we've faced and helped address those for us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the founder and visionary of the Center for Native American Youth, Senator Byron Dorgan.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for being here. It's raining. I know you know that. It's early in the morning, but we really appreciate your willingness to participate in the Center for Native American Youth program called Champions for Change. And thanks to Sam McCracken and Nike, but especially to Sam, who serves on our executive committee. Sam taught Michael Jordan how to play basketball. He runs 110 miles an hour, has a 6-foot vertical leap. He can hit balls not even he can catch. He works for a company that produces all kinds of athletic equipment and clothing, and it's an extraordinary company, and it's been very beneficial to the Center for Native American Youth. I'm also joined by Patty Talahangva. She is a well-known national journalist, an American Indian who has done extraordinary things and also serves on our executive committee and is such an important part of the Center for Native American Youth. And finally, we have a great staff, and you'll see them throughout the morning, but this is about a staff at the Center for Native American Youth that makes things happen, good things happen, that put all the spotlights on one spot, and that is, how can we improve the lives for Native American youth? The question is, are you being lifted up or left behind? And I've always felt that the children of the first Americans too often have been left behind, and it needn't be that way. We understand the trauma and the desperate difficulties when you look at the numbers, school dropouts of Native American youth, teen suicide, inadequate health care, a whole series of things. And I could talk about them all morning, and I could put names to them, and we could all weep together about the circumstance. And we work on those every day. It's not to suggest, let's not talk about it. Let's talk about it, work on it, and improve it. But it's also important to do something else, and that is to lift up the spirits of all of us to understand it's not just bad news. There are some inspirational young people working on Indian reservations and off reservations all across this country to try to improve the lives of Native American youth. You have 5 of them here in front of you. This is the next class of the Champions for Change. They're all different. They come from different parts of the country. They look different, but they all have a similar urge and passion, and that is to do something that is bigger than themselves. At this age, I was pretty much looking after myself, I tell you. These kids, and we'll talk about it for the next hour, these kids are doing extraordinary things. Now, you've all read Aesop's fables, I'm sure. Let me tell you 2. One is Aesop's fly sitting on the axle of a chariot, observing, "My, what dust I do raise." But probably not, right? The second is the fly that lights on the nose of the oxen as the oxen goes out to plow the land to raise the food for the villagers. At the end of a long day, the oxen, having plowed all day long, came back, and the villagers, to show their appreciation, stood in 2 lines applauding the work. The fly, still there on the nose of the oxen, hearing the applause, takes a very deep bow and says, "We've been plowing." But of course, it's very different in terms of who pulls the plow and who takes the bow, isn't it? And I want this morning for you to leave this place understanding that while we are enmeshed in a lot of policy decisions that will affect the lives of Native American youth, and some of them are difficult and the stories are wrenching, I want you to leave here understanding that out in the reaches of our country, there are some young men and women, often working alone, who are doing extraordinary things to affect and benefit the lives of others. And that's what the Champions for Change program is all about. One last story about a woman named Rose Crowsflies High. Rose was from the 3 affiliated tribes in North Dakota, and every time I went to visit the 3 affiliated tribes, didn't matter what the organization was or what I was doing, Rose would show up. And you know what a tongue rattle is? Many of you do, right? Rose had the best and loudest tongue rattle in the 3 affiliated, and so that's how I knew she was always in the audience. But I went to the 3 affiliated tribes once, and Rose talked to me about the need for a dialysis center with a large number of adults that were suffering from diabetes. She said, "You got to get this done, Mr. Senator. You got to get this done." Well, about a year and a half later, I finally got a dialysis center, got it funded, and opened it up at the 3 affiliated tribes. And Rose Crowsflies High was there. And I said to Rose, "We got it done, Rose, didn't we?" She said, "Yep, there's a lot more to do," and then smiled. There's a lot more to do. And part of who is doing that are these young people that we call champions. Now, Patty and I are going to introduce them, and I've got a cheat sheet, if you don't mind, just to give you some names. But I spent some part of yesterday with them. We have a young woman named Vanessa. She is teaching language and culture. She really, I think, should be the horse whisperer because of her love for horses. We have Noah Blue Elk, who is doing adaptive sports for people with disabilities. Remarkable young man. He created something called the Tribal Adaptive Organization. We have Sam Slater. He's actually a city boy, an American Indian who lives in a city. And he takes a group of students from his school for a 2-week immersion on the Navajo lands and is changing people's perception about what's going on and learning about the other cultures. There's Braden White. He's from New York. He can't help that. I'm sorry, Braden. But Braden is from a tribe in New York, a wonderful young man, and he created something called Helping Hands. And he'll tell you about Helping Hands, but it is born of suicide prevention needs that he feels must be met. And then Christy Wildcat, she started something called the Wind River All Action Crew, an accomplished artist. And she and the folks involved with her are working on almost everything that represents community service. Can you imagine the great work that's done? Now, I read the paper this morning, and I didn't see a lot of good news. But you know what? I wish there were a section of the newspaper that said, hey, listen, look at what's happening out there. Look at what these kids do. Let's celebrate that. So we're here to celebrate a little bit today, 5 extraordinary champions for change. And in order to do that in a little more depth, I want to call on Patty Talahanga, and then we're going to have a discussion. You're going to hear from these kids, and then you're going to have a chance to ask some questions. But I want to thank all of you for coming again, as I have said before, and participating in this exercise this morning to allow us to feel good, not just today, but every day, that we're all participating in something that I think improves the lives of kids. Patty?
Esculi, tsangau umaangka kia. Sunwai talongva, no kotsaku kyang mana yan hopi matsiwa, put no piu Patty talongva, yan pahan matsiwa, no kauwangwa, no tsitsumovit angko. Good morning. It's a beautiful morning, isn't it? Where I come from, the rain is always welcome. And I think last year it was raining too. I think that's a sign that this is such a wonderful program. And what is rain but water, and water is life, right? So we always welcome the rain, and we always appreciate that life-giving source here. And I think it's appropriate as we announce our new class of champions for change. I'm Hopi, and I am from First Mesa. I am Corn Clan and Water Clan. Did you get the connection? And I'm also on the founding board member of the Center for Native American Youth, and then also on the executive committee as well. So I just want to thank you as well, as a senator, thank you for being here, for taking time to come here and help us recognize these amazing Native youth here in front of us. Like Sam, I think we were both, everybody who received a call from Byron Dorgan back in 2011 was a little surprised, shell-shocked when a senator, even though he's recently retired, calls you up and says, hey. And I said, okay, why is he calling me? I hadn't called him, and as a journalist, I had interviewed him when he was on the Senate Committee of Indian Affairs. So that was an interesting little twist and turnaround for him to be calling me out of the blue. And at the heart of our work is suicide prevention. And that is certainly something that I can get behind, because a lot of us as Native people have had many family members commit suicide in all ages. And that has got to end. That has got to stop. Our ancestors fought too hard for us to survive, only for us to end up taking our own lives. So, and that is not the Native way for any of us. So how do we honor our ancestors and continue to thrive, not just survive, but thrive as Native people here? So I said yes to his request to be on the board, and I have enjoyed every minute of it. And looking at these young people here today, our new class, smile, you guys. You're on candid camera. They're wonderful. They're just hearing about their initiatives. And I think with what they're doing here is they are honoring their ancestors. No matter what the tragedy or the hardships that Native youth have faced, they are honoring their ancestors by finding a way to make things better. And that has got to be applauded. So, round of applause for you guys. So we know the historical trauma that Native people face. I think the difference between when I was a youth and the youth today is social media, and being able to put the information out there and say, we are facing these hardships, but we are also making a change, and we are addressing. And the first thing you have to do is talk about the issue. And I have seen some very brave youth who have tackled some very, very difficult issues in their communities and in their families, and they have made a change here. So again, thank you, and we look forward to learning more about you. I warned them last night at dinner, embrace every moment, because this year is going to fly by. And so have fun, enjoy, and continue to inspire people behind you, even the 8-year-olds coming up behind you. So, and us adults as well, in inspiring us. So let's start with them, right? Let's start talking about what their initiatives are and how they're changing the world, one community at a time. Let's start with you, Noah.
Okay. Oh,
Tell us about your initiative.
so me and my dad and we started the Tribal Adaptive Organization, and we got a $10,000 grant from Billy Mills and the Running Strong for Native American Indian Youth Dream Starter Project to host wheelchair basketball programs on the reservations. And our mission is to use sports as a tool to change and impact the lives of disabled natives. And I'm just going to leave it at that, and we'll get more into it.
Okay, leave it at that, okay? Well, I do want to talk to you a little bit about how you became disabled. And again, for a lot of people, that is something that they wouldn't want to continue on. They wouldn't want to,
Yeah.
or how you adapted to that.
So it was November 22nd, 2009, and we just dropped my dad off from the airport, and we were driving to go see my mom, and then all of a sudden, a guy fell asleep at the wheel when we were turning around a car, and he hit us head on, and my stepmother died in the crash. I broke my wrist, broke my back, had a severe brain injury, and so in the hospital, finally realizing that I couldn't use my legs, I couldn't walk. I used to play soccer, I used to play basketball. I was really into sports, and so it really impacted my life and made me feel like I had no value left in this world. Like I couldn't do this anymore. My friends, it was always awkward going back to them. But over time, my dad started making me go camping and go rafting, and eventually he made me go skiing for the first time. And so I went up to the Adaptive Sports Association of Durango, and that's really where I started kind of coming out of my shell a little bit and realizing that there are opportunities. Then I started going to wheelchair sports camps where I met other disabled people who started pushing me to go further and further. And then as I look back at it now, like after all those experiences of going to wheelchair sports camps, going to basketball camps, and doing all these things, like as I look at it now, our team, the Phoenix Suns, are the #1 ranked wheelchair basketball team in the country. I'm the fastest under 21 monoskater in the world, and I'm pursuing multiple sports right now to go to the championships in each of them. And so I think through my accident, I've learned a lot about not seeing barriers as barriers that I can't get over. I see them as barriers that I can overcome, and I'm always open for challenges.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good for you. Congratulations. And where's your dad? Did he raise his hand? All right, back there. And good for you as well.
I think I found my new ski partner.
All right. I don't want to race him for sure. Anyway, let's go to this end and hear from Braden White. Braden, you began the work you're now doing as a result of some tragedy, right?
Yeah. So in 2012, I had lost my really good friend to suicide, and it hit us hard in a lot of ways. But to me, I also took away from it is he was a senior in prep school at Salisbury Prep, and he had a full 4-year ride at Cornell University. But like I said, he was in his senior year at prep school, so he came home for winter break, and I wanted to see him over break, and I didn't get to see him, so I was like, oh, well, at the end of break, I'll see him before he heads back. And on January 2nd, 2012, he committed suicide. But like what I took away from it was you can't put a face on suicide or depression or mental illness, or because like that was a prime example of like he was in prep school, he had great academics, great lacrosse player, had a full like I said, a full 4-year ride to Cornell University, which is an Ivy League, and like he had such a supporting family, and like he had such a great network of friends. Like he was that one kid that everybody was friends with. But like what happened was like years later, like I heard like he had gone to his friends and like they didn't quite understand what was going on at the time, and that like that he was in crisis, and they kind of just were like, well, sleep it off, we'll talk tomorrow. But being in that vulnerable state of mind, he we always say that like he must have played it off as like they didn't care, like because like when you're in such a vulnerable state of mind, you're in you start to think irrationally. So from like learning that, I started structuring this initiative through education and intervention. We can help our youth, so like when they're in crisis, they don't have to feel so alone. But also it's a peer-to-peer initiative where like it's a youth to youth, and then that trusted youth brings in a professional to assist. And the ideology behind that is that it's really hard for a youth to talk to an adult directly about their problems, because there's like I always feel like there's an age gap. But like for a youth to talk to another youth of the same age group, it's really easy for them because there's that connection. There's that age connection, and they both feel like they're growing up in that same environment. So like that's what I started, and I think it's like been working really well.
It's a perfect name, Helping Hands.
Yeah, and the ideology behind the name Helping Hands is everybody falls, but everybody needs a helping hand to get back on their feet.
Thanks a lot, Braden.
I like that a lot too. Christy, tell us about your initiative.
Okay. Dos Nananana, Christy Wildcat. Hi, my name is Christy Wildcat. I'm a senior at Raritan High School, back in Raritan in Wyoming. But my initiative is the Wind River All Action Crew, and what it is it's a community service group. And what we do is we get youth to the youngest age as 3. And we kind of mentor them and, sorry about that. We prepare them for a lifetime of commitment to giving back to the community and to give back in any way possible, and to just do whatever calls us to the job, really. And so that's my initiative for Wind River All Action Crew. And with that, what we plan to do is eliminate stereotypes, that bad kid rep that they give us, and just eliminate that in general and show people who we really are as a people.
And I really like the name of that initiative as well. So I have this idea in my head about youth coming together and helping out, doing something to improve the neighborhood or your community or your family, and really, I can't imagine, what does a 3-year-old do?
What she did was she helped make cards for the senior center. She decorated them, and she stayed up late with me making cookies for the staff at the senior center, and they just do the small work, or they carry in the kitty treats to the animal shelter. Just different jobs like that.
That sounds wonderful. And so again, no matter how young you are, you can make a difference. And I think that when you grow up doing that kind of community service, volunteering, it becomes a part of what you do, what you see as fun, and continue on as adults to volunteer and to help out in your own community as well. So that's wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Was there a spark that persuaded you that I want to try to do and incent other kids to do community service?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because back on my reservation, I didn't see anything being done. Like, if you had to do community service, you were being forced to do it. And, like, nothing was being done, so I finally just had enough of it. So, you know what? Something needs to be done. And so I took action, hence the All Action Crew, because people talk, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, but no action. So we're just all action crew.
That should go on your T-shirt. All action and no talk, right?
Exactly.
So far, our youth have come from reservation communities, but Sam is different. And as Senator Dorgan mentioned, you know, he's a true urban Indian. He's right here in the suburbs of DC, and is making a huge impact among his predominantly. Are you the only Native in your school, or? Okay, so, and how many of us have had that experience as well? So, how are you changing minds at your school?
Hello, yat shikado shidane do shinat ki ani nashlin do na izidane bashchin do sinajin dashache do sontane dashnala akot ego de nashlin Washington ke hashte in the Senekana de nasha do she translating she. Hello, welcome. Since this is my stomping grounds, my my hometown. My name's Sam. I just introduced myself in the traditional Navajo way, which you always, when you meet someone new, when you talk before a group, you always have to start with that because it's just so much more than beyond a name. It's who you come from, it's where you come from, and it grounds you. So growing up in Washington, D.C., without my clan, without my relatives, away from my home, I said I walk around D.C., but my steps are really in Round Rock, Arizona, because that's where my umbilical cord is buried. That's where I'm always tied to. That's what nourishes me. It's almost like you're rudderless in a way if you're living in DC and growing up in this situation, because a one-family community isn't sustainable. You can't. There needs to be more. As much as my mom has given us, there's always. It's the whole community that raises a child. So we have, kind of because of that, it started with my brother. We all were trying to find ways. How can we make our community bigger? How can we bring more people into the small Native Navajo community, the one family? And what my brother started was the service learning trip at our school. And we said, well, if they don't know where I'm coming from, how are they going to know unless we show them? And how else are they going to learn? So what we've done is, for the past 10 years, and I've been leading it for the past 5, is we've brought a group of about 12 students out to our home community in Round Rock. And it's developed over the years, but it's now really developed program at our school that we're really proud of. And we prepare the students before they go, we show them, and the best way for them, because they're learning, and knowledge is, in some ways, it's almost tangible. They're taking something from the community when they go in, and these experiences and this knowledge, they're bringing it back with them. So there has to be some exchange. So that exchange is through their direct service, and that's how they learn. In addition to being kind of sit down and you're going to listen to the general or the various branches of the Navajo Nation government, or you're going to listen to a Hatatli, a medicine man, talk to you. There's that kind of direct learning, but also just the experiences and the interactions with people. That's how they learn. So that exchange is so important, and that's what we really focus on. And then we say they've invested in you, so now you have to pass that knowledge along. So when they come back and they're the Indian experts now, because they've been there, they've saw it, and as much as as bad as that sounds, these Anglo kids are the Indian experts. Their experiences are so powerful that we push them as much as they can to share them with the rest of our school, and to through assemblies, through workshops that they go on to do. So that's what we do, and it all starts from that place of kinship and creating your community, because you find it anywhere. It's not. It's like someone once told me, if you think of community like a rubber band, and you have the rubber band stretched out here, the farther away you are, the more chance you have of it snapping, and then you lost your connection. So us being in DC, that's like stretching, that's a far, far eastern agency of Navajo. So if we think of it that way, it's gonna disappear. But you have to figure out ways of carrying it with you, of showing this is who you are, and I bring it with me everywhere. So that's what brought us to really, teach my peers and try and make my community larger through them. Yeah.
I want to know how many times you've had them butcher sheep.
we have had a few vegetarian. They came out meat-eating families, and the families or meat-eating students, and then the families come back and say, "What'd you do to them? You won't eat meat anymore." Yes, no, it is part of it. That's how else do you learn? Full cycle of life.
Congratulations. Congratulations for a wonderful program. What a great idea. And finally, we have Vanessa Goodthunder. She's from Minnesota, I know that. Lower Sioux Indian Community of Minnesota. And I suggested Horse Whisperer as a nickname, but I was just kidding. But you do love horses, right?
I do.
So tell us about your life and what you're doing.
We won't get into that. Hami dakuyapi. Yahipi kiwashte. Yush kiwan chiankapi. Washichuya Vanessa Goodthunder makiapi. Dakota yas nasnawi demie. Chashayapi hemataha. Nina hechia dahawahi. Petukinde wahi chinch. Ta unkota pi iwo uhdakapi. Naku Dakota iapi iwo uhdakapi kte. Damakota bedewa kantwa hemacha naku dene eapi. Tu ejini dene hemacha ye. Twitsoni dashish che pidama eapi. So hello everybody, it's good to see all of your faces today. It's good that you're here. We're talking about awesome things today. I just love listening to these guys. I could just listen to them forever. My name is Vanessa Goodthunder. My Dakota name is Nasnawi, which means jingling woman. I come from where they paint the trees red, also known as the Lower Sioux Indian Community in southwest Minnesota. My mom is from Clagato, Arizona, so there's a story in itself right there, how my parents met. And so I'm Tuichini Dene, I'm Bitterwater Dene Navajo, and my grandpa is Big Water. And so I come from two identities right there. So I grew up with a mom who's Dene and a father who's Dakota. So I've been striving to learn my language, both of them. And because I believe that my language is a piece of me and it's a part of me, and without it, I'm not whole. Because you can't split the language, the history, the sovereignty, the identity, the place from each other. And so that's why when I was 18 years old, I dedicated my life to my languages and to teaching it. So I've been teaching it since I was 18. When I say I mean we as a collective. I work with a bunch of youth that are just amazing. And when I say youth, I mean I'm young too. So we are all youth. And what we do is we made a play that's all in Dakota, and we go around all Minnesota and teach about who we are through that traditional story that was converted into a play that's all in the Dakota language. And it's really exciting because we get to tell people who we are, because for so long, people haven't been listening to us. People don't really want to have us in their curriculum. People don't want to hear us. And so that's why we do that, because, I feel like today there's places like the Center for Native American Youth. There's places like Sam, what he's doing, he's bringing people to the Navajo Nations to teach it, because people are ready to listen. And that's why I'm just excited. I'm pumped for today. I'm pumped for everything that's going to happen. And finally, I'll just talk about the last initiative that we just started in June. It's called Da'unkotapi, which means we are all Dakota. And a bunch of us youth from Lower Sioux were like, hey, we want to meet people from Shakopee, from Prairie Island, from Upper Sioux. That we're all related. We are all Dakota, but we're all on these different reservations, and we're acting like we're different from each other, but we're not. We're the same. So let's come together and let's grow up together as leaders. So we have this group called Da'unkotapi that meets 4 times a year, and then they have subgroups that meet throughout the year as well that take on the challenges that Native youth face. They talk about it, they talk about what's good happening in those communities, and what more can we as Native youth do, federal agencies and local leaders can do to help Native youth. And so, Pirameya.
Great job.
It's so beautiful to hear all of them speaking their native language, and again, when you consider the history of English only when it came to Native Americans, our ancestors found a way. They kept that language alive, and so today we have our language, we have our songs, our prayers, everything, and it's wonderful to hear that people are passing that on, and as a young person too, because there was a time where a lot of us were laughed at when we didn't pronounce the words correctly. And English is my first language, and I have, similar to you, have made a commitment to learning my language. And so I'll never be fluent in my language, but I'll continue to learn it, even into my golden years here, which are fast approaching. So, I wanted to ask Sam a quick question here, because as we talk about, the challenges to our cultures and our language, many of us are intertribal, like you, Vanessa, and then many of us are biracial or multiracial, and that's you, Sam. So, when someone sees you, the question that a lot of us can't stand is, wow, you don't look Indian.
Or how much Indian are you?
Or how much are you?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. And then you open up your mouth and you start rattling off Navajo. That probably blows people's minds. But speaking from a biracial perspective, how do you answer that question when people approach you with those kinds of questions?
I think you just have to, you take a deep breath and you understand, I'm teaching someone. It's not as angry as it makes you feel that, like, you're the Indian expert now, really? Okay. A little did I know, I'm sorry. So you just have to understand, okay, why is it that they see, there are just so many factors that go into that little comment of what they just said of, well, you don't look Indian, how much Indian are you? There's so much history and policy and laws and things that have gone into that statement, so you kind of have to dissect it in your mind, saying like, okay, well, their perception of Indians is based off of the media, which is based off of this romanticized version of Indians, which is also based on the savage version of Indians, that all played into creating an American identity that doesn't reflect who I truly am, but it is ingrained in who this country is, because that's what we've chosen to believe in. And you kind of have to then say, well, that's, and you have to understand, well, if they want to know your blood quantum, or if they're that educated and they want to know that much, and that's also just another opportunity to explain to them, well, blood quantum, yes, that is how that's how we define ourselves as Native people. That's what determines your enrollment status and your certificate of degree of Indian blood. It's all on there. It's important because we make it important, because the government told us, you have to determine by blood who your people are, because they thought in 100 years you're going to be gone. You're just going to keep marrying with the white people, and there'll be nothing left. But what we see is there are more and more people like me who are pale skin, light skin, green eyes. I don't have quite blonde hair, but when I was younger I did. And we stay connected. We're interested. We're devoted, and we're dedicated to making sure that that's how we continue perpetuating who we are. And that's not the Navajo way to say blood is the only way. What's so much more important to us is those clans, because there are 4 original clans, and we come from Tuarachini and Kia'ani. Those are 2 of the 4 original clans. And after that, it was just opening up our arms and saying, come join us. There was a camp over there, come join us. There was a group of people who we've passed along our path. Oh, come join us. One of the biggest clans today is the Nakaitane. You look at my grandmother, they say full-blooded Navajo Indian woman. She wasn't full-blooded. She had Nakaitane. Who are the Nakai? They're Mexicans. That's one of the biggest clans today. So you have to understand it's possible. It's our way to incorporate people. And we have to stop looking at people, looking at our relatives and saying, you don't look like me, so I don't think you're like me. You have to say, you don't look like me, but that doesn't matter. So I think it hurts the most when another Native says it, when another Navajo says it, well, you don't look Navajo. But, in some ways that's, they kind of have every right to look at this kid coming from DC who doesn't look like them, saying, well, like, you want to be what I am? And they, if I have to prove myself to them, so be it. And if I have to introduce myself, if I have to talk about who my relatives are, what my grandparents did, and all this stuff, I'm fine with that, because it just makes me stronger. So I think that's what I'd say to other young Natives who are in this situation, just say, this is your learning opportunity. This is your opportunity to teach someone else, and this is your opportunity to strengthen yourself. So that's what I'd say.
Well said. I want to mention to you, we had dozens and dozens and dozens of applications or nominations for the Champions for Change, coming from all across the country, from tribes all across America. And these are the 5 that were designated as the Champions for Change. Those others, other children or other kids who were nominated from across the country are all going to be youth ambassadors for the Center for Native American Youth. They've all received a certificate in the mail on their youth ambassadorship, and we very much appreciate their nominations as well. The Champions for Change class, as you can see, are really smart, bright, committed, passionate to do really interesting things. And again, I'm inspired every time I hear them. So let me ask a couple of questions. What we'd like to do is ask a few more questions, and then at some point we'll open it up. If you have some questions, you're sure welcome to ask them as well. Noah, this is a really dumb question, and I don't even know why I'm asking it, but you're wondering what it is, aren't you? Have you ever watched the program Friday Night Lights?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. In the program Friday Night Lights, there is a football player, the star football player, is tackled and has a severed spinal cord, I believe, or in any event, is in a wheelchair. And the program, over a number of weeks and months, describes the emotions this young star quarterback went through. First, my life is over. And then anger and a range of things. And then he began playing wheelchair basketball, and he began recruiting others, and he became very, very embracing of the competitive spirit of what he could do rather than what he's lost. In other words, to me, it was just interesting watching that program. And when you talked about it this morning, I was wondering whether you went through the series of emotions you might have seen on that same program, and second, whether you have to probably recognize everyone else in the disability community that you're trying to recruit and to be involved with to help their lives. Do you have to recognize what stage they are in? Have they recognized what they're capable of yet, or so it's a long question, but give me your sense of that.
So I'll start off with the, so I did go through all those stages. Kind of, it started off, I was really angry about everything that happened, then deep level of depression, I got really depressed. To points where I thought of committing suicide and that kind of stuff. And so, but really it was sports that brought me out of that. And the main reason why I'm trying to get kids and people, I'm trying to get them at the earliest stage possible, like right when they get out of the hospital, because I don't want them to try to fight through major depression or major anger in their life. I want them to kind of look bright and look ahead and not look back. I lost myself a little bit. Could you?
But reaching out to see others and being able to recognize where are they in this, and you indicated the best time to reach them is right after they come out of the hospital or rehabilitation of some type?
Yeah, and it does get hard trying to see what level of stages they're at, because when I was going through depression, I'd go to school and I'd be happy as a bee, and I wouldn't show a single emotion of being sad at all. So finding people like that, it's kind of hard to assess where they're at and coping with what's happened to them. But it's kind of, I don't really focus on seeing what level of depression they're at. I want to really focus on seeing what level of happiness they can obtain. Yeah.
Well, great work, really terrific work. And let me ask one more question, then Patty will have questions. But Braden, when Noah is working with someone who has, just been disabled or has a disability of some type, he sees that person in front of him and assesses sort of what's happening and brings them into his orbit and talks about what is possible. When you're talking about a friend that committed suicide, and so you create an organization, you don't have the same circumstance. You don't see some kid that's necessarily in trouble and about to commit suicide or threatening to. So you're out there trying to reach a broader audience and population, aren't you? I mean, tell me how how you feel like you're making progress, because you can't see the person in front of you necessarily.
Well, like I believe I'm making progress through because like I did a lot of study behind suicide in Indian country and like in different First Nations communities in Canada. And I read the CDC report that talked about suicide in Native American communities, and it stated that for American Indians and Alaskan Natives ages 10 to 34, suicide is the second leading cause of death. And like even if you break it down, say 10 to 24, or even 10 to 18, at 10 you're at such a vulnerable age. It's your self-identity. You're coming into yourself. So I think it's really crucial that like we have this support network and that it's there. And like I know I've heard like from a lot of people about like what I'm doing and how like the changes it's making, because they're like, now that I know I have someone to confide in and someone to be able to trust in my darkest times, I know like I don't have to like be alone in the situation, face my demons all by myself. And I think that's really important.
Thank you very much.
So they're finding different ways to break down stereotypes and inspire people around them. And one of the programs is the CNAY program. And Vanessa, you've been a big part of that, working with CNAY. How do you see that helping to change the stereotype attitude towards Native youth or Native Americans in particular, period, with the general population? How is that helping?
I think it's helping because we have the President of the United States saying, hey, Native youth matter. And like I said before in our curriculum, it wasn't there. That recognition, that importance placed on Native youth wasn't there. I mean, even before I even existed. And so now we're able to have something there like, hey, take this CNAY challenge. You're doing these things that are positive. All of these youth in my community and other communities, they're able to do amazing things, but sometimes they just need a little push and they just need something to look forward to, because if I do it, it doesn't matter, they say. Well, who really cares about us? Well, the whole United States does. The president does. These people care. I can tell them, you matter and you care. Because Nessa, she tells you care every day. Sometimes that doesn't work every time when I say you matter. They're like, all right, whatever you say, Nessa, whatever. And now I can say there's this amazing movement that you can be a part of. Look at what this kid's doing. They have this CNAY map. I can go on it and I show, look what this kid's doing in Arizona. Look what this kid's doing in California. That's exactly what you're doing. You're not alone. And so you can have all of these people to help support you in anything you do. I'm always there to support you. These people are always there to support you. But look at this huge picture. You are making a difference. And so that's why I'm super pumped and excited about CNAY.
And we probably should mention the hashtag again for today, Champions for Change, all spelled out. So maybe we'll get trending on Twitter here if you guys are all tweeting out. Okay, I'm taking pictures, but I can't tweet at the same time. So it's up to you guys.
Christy, you, I'm told, are an accomplished artist. Mm-hmm. And also through art and through the other things you're doing, you're working on the issue of combating racism. So let's talk about racism just for a moment. And first of all, tell me about your art, and then let's talk about racism.
Okay. What I do with my art is I take glass work, like glass fusing, stained glass, like different medias, and create traditional Native artwork through that. I tell stories, I teach about our culture, and just kind of show like different types of art. Like, for example, some of my pieces have been historical events. I've done the Sand Creek Massacre, Wounded Knee Massacre. I created that all through glass. And I've told stories about dancers. I'm creating a piece now about the story, The Great Race. And so I just do different projects through glass, but I also do oil paintings as well. Like I've created the Trail of Tears. And along there, I just finished a piece on intergenerational trauma. And so through art, that's how I kind of express my culture, and I educate people on like our culture and like different stories. And through my artwork, once they're done, I take them to a statewide art show. It's called Art Symposium, and that's where over thousands and thousands of people are able to see it. And I was lucky enough to be selected by Wyoming's First Lady, and she loved my art, and so she picked 2 of my pieces. She put one on display in her mansion, the governor's mansion, and then the other one was put in the national or federal, I guess, museum in their state capitol there. And so along with that, what I do is I create those art pieces to kind of educate about my culture and like who we are as a people, and that itself will eliminate the racial tensions and stereotypes given to us, and it just helps people get a better understanding of who we are.
Let me ask just a follow-up question on this issue of racism, because I think it's important in the lives of Native American kids. You come to a town where the person that owns the football team, a National Football League team, has the name Redskins. A lot of controversy about that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that almost everyone on the stage has at some moment that has in their minds some moment when there's been some sort of overt racist comment, glance, slight, right? And so this issue of racism is important. Is it important at this point that that symbols like the name of a football team, Redskins, be eliminated? Is that a part of addressing racism, do you think, or is it not relevant?
Yeah, I think it's important to address it, because if they think that's okay, then they think other things such as like just different derogatory terms are okay. I mean, I wrote an argument paper regarding that name and changing the mascot and all of that. The teacher found it a very interesting argument paper. I mean, it sparked interest in my school. I mean, my school counselors wanted to read it, and so just a simple paper, like due for a grade, like that will make a change, and it's just an easy way to kind of combat that derogatory term and just kind of show your support. And like I said, it'll help educate people and kind of let them have a better understanding of like what racial is and like how they can help to eliminate it as well.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that name should be changed, and should have been changed long ago, and certainly should be changed now. In fact, they can find a name like Minnesota has picked a rodent, gophers, right? There's lots of ways to come up with a better name.
Very strong.
One of the, I'm a lifetime member of the Native American Journalists Association, and NAJA has taken a stand on this for many years, saying that news organizations can report accurately without using the name Redskins in their reporting. And then we had a panel last summer here in DC about this very topic. And it was interesting because many Native people will not write or say the word Redskin. And because of that, it's not showing up in social media or internet searches that we are against that name. A majority of Native Americans are against that name. I can't say all of us, because we know there are many Native Americans who wear the shirts and support the team and think there's nothing wrong with it. But when you've got the American Psychology Association saying this is a racial slur, and it's dictionary defined as a racial slur, and there's lots of studies showing that it is detrimental to our mental health and also the physical health. But because we're not saying the name and we're not spelling it out in social media, our stances are not being recorded. So it changed my perspective. And when I tweet out and when I talk about this, I use the word, and then the 2 hashtags that you guys can follow too are change the name and not your mascot. So you probably come up with that issue a lot, right, Sam? Being here in the hot belly of Dan Snyder's team.
Oh yeah. I think it's important what you're saying, that there's a multiplicity of Native perspectives on this. We're not one. It's dangerous when you try and lump all Natives together and say they have one perspective on this one issue. So it's important to understand, there's five of us up here, probably 20 different perspectives on it because between the five of us. But then I guess what I'd say is that in my experience, it's been more dangerous, not for me, or it's been more harmful, not for me as a Native seeing Redskin, is that really who I am? And kind of it lowering my self-worth. But it's more dangerous for the non-Natives around me who see Redskins. They see, okay, that's acceptable. Like Chrissy was saying, if that's acceptable, then what else, or what's the next envelope I can push? And they see it as, it's all part, you have to understand, like you're saying with racism, it's no longer, it still is going into a border town or whatever and getting beaten up because you look Indian and that kind of thing. But it's much larger than that because it's not just a feeling that one person harbors against another person, it's these systems. So you say this logo is part of these larger systems of oppression that have, that are designed to dehumanize us in the perspectives of non-Natives and look at us as less than them. So when they say, oh, I can dress up as you, oh, I can play a football team, you're as good as a dead Viking, or as good as what else is there? There's I don't know, the Bears. Well, I don't know, we'll take that as a compliment, but but you're an animal to us. That's what's harmful, because then those non-Natives, what I found, through our program, they're the ones making the decisions. My grandparents said, you never know who's going to be the next friend of the Navajo. They said that, meaning you have to reach out and educate people, so that because their decisions and what they do in their life affects you. It's not only in your hands. You have to, as much as we can work in our own communities, we have to find partners outside of Indian country who are willing to take a stand beside us and say, we're going to help you. So when you have non-Natives looking at us, oh, the Redskins, they're not taking that first step as seeing us as their equals and partners, and even enabling us to engage in that first discussion past where we can actually become partners and work together, because you're on such an uneven playing field. You're on such a different level. So that's what, for me, because I come from, I'm blessed in that I come from a strong home, and that my mother was able to say, that's not who you are. You know who you are. I taught you who you are. So I think it's more dangerous for our non-Native peers, but it still affects us through that roundabout way.
We should have Mom raise her hand over here.
Please do.
Right in the front. Thank you very much, Sam. What we'd like to do is take a couple of questions from the audience. We're going to break at about 10:25. This group, they're going to the Supreme Court and meet Justice Sotomayor today. They're going to tour the Supreme Court. They'll be touring the Capitol building. They'll be introduced at the National Congress for American Indians this afternoon. I'll introduce them there, and then we have a reception starting at 7 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock. I'm sorry. Well, if you all come at 7, it's just going to be getting started. But at 5 o'clock, I'm sorry. And I want to, before we, if you have some questions, want to welcome you to ask them. I wanted to mention to you, Eric Stegman is the director of the Center for Native American Youth. Erin Bailey, who was previously the director, is going to be here for part of today. She is in Minneapolis now, but she's also on our executive committee and remains very active. Josie Raffalito is the staff program assistant here that runs the Champions for Change program and does an extraordinary job. Josie's from New Mexico. I've been to her tribal lands, and she's been here from the start of CNAY. So Josie, thanks for what you do to help put this together. And then I know Teddy's in the back, right? Teddy, would you wave as part of our staff? And Amber, and I think Ryan is here, or maybe just outside. But we've got a great staff, and I want you all to recognize that they're the ones that do the work. So thanks for all the work that you all do.
And I just wanted to thank you as well for involving me and inviting me to be a participant in this and meeting all the youth. It's fabulous to hear your stories and then again watch them as the year unfolds. So thank you so much.
That's right. You make all of us walk a little taller when we leave here, feeling a little better about life. Yes, ma'am, right back there.
Hi. Hi, thanks so much to all of you for the great work that you're doing. My question is specific for Noah. My name's Risa. I work with the Aspen Institute Sports and Society program, and so your story touches very closely to the work that we do in getting youth active through sport. And I'm curious, as you talk about some of the camps that you went to soon after your accident, were those available on your reservation or you had to leave your reservation? And can you talk about before you started the wheelchair basketball tournaments on your reservation and other reservations, what sort of is the access to these programs on reservations, yours specifically, or sort of on a national level?
Yeah. So for me, so those tournaments were about 3 hours, or those the camps were about 3 hours away in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and so that's quite a drive. And Albuquerque's relatively close to the Navajo reservation, but kind of the access to wheelchair sports in general is just, you got to travel really far for people who live on the reservation. I know that right now for my junior team, I have to travel 8 hours to Phoenix, Arizona to actually play on a high school team, and then the closest team I got is the men's team, collegiate team, and they play in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So, and they practice every week, and it's a 3-hour drive and a lot of money. And so I really want to start not making it so much of a drive, because on reservation lands, money is a problem sometimes for some people, and I don't want them to have their children miss out on great opportunities like this just because they can't pay for the trip over there. So I offer to help pay for their rooms or pay for their gas, and I also want to start a team maybe in Shiprock or something like that, so that they don't have to travel long distances to play a sport that they should be able to play wherever.
So access is a big problem, right?
Yeah.
I assume you probably find that as well. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kelly Field. I'm a reporter with the Chronicle of Higher Education. I'm about to begin this big project looking at Native youth and educational attainment. And I wanted to see, what your experiences are with the college going on the reservations that you live on. And what you think could be done at the federal level, at the state level. What steps should be taken to help close achievement gaps?
Who wants to answer that?
I can.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't grow up on the reservation, but I can say, coming from a family of educators, that it's so much of our, when my grandfather was at the Center for Indian Education at ASU in the 60s, when they were starting that up, he was the first one who created the study looking at Native achievement, the students, and what they found was the students who performed the best were the students who knew the most about their culture, knew the most about their language, had the strongest footing in that aspect before they even went on to learn these Western ways of knowing in the school and their math and their English and their sciences. So that's, I think, just from my perspective, just something that needs to be valued and that needs to be put on an equal pedestal when you're looking at our achievement, because before we go on to these college and these other things, you have to know who you are before you leave your community. So whether that's by going to your tribal college and taking courses there and saying, I'm going to really firm up stabilize myself before I leave my community, or whether it's having a ceremony done before you leave because you want to leave in the right mindset before you go off to college. Those kind of things are so important that we see the value of them, but not when someone's making a policy decision, they don't necessarily see the value of what a ceremony can do for someone before they start the school year. So that's what I'd say about our achievement, is that our achievement needs to be measured in both ways of knowing.
We had a question over here. If we want to get as many before we have to break. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Joshua Marshall, and I'm with the Administration for Native Americans. And I have a question specifically for Christy, but in general for all of you. So I'm also Arapaho. I was born and raised on the Wind River. I went to Riverton High School, graduated a long, long time ago.
There you
But so I guess my question is, how do you the reception to the community? When I was growing up, I don't know if there was. I don't know. It was not as receptive to an initiative like this. So I guess, what do you think is the reason behind how receptive you find leaders in the community to this initiative, and what do you think that change was? And then to all of you, these projects need partnerships with adults and leaders in your community. Do you feel like they see you as leaders of youth or youth leaders? There's a difference. So.
All right.
Okay.
Who wants to take that? Christy first.
I'll start it out. Well, like back on the reservation, like I said, there's a lot of talkers. Like, say they'll do this, but none of them really took the initiative to go forward with it. Like every so often, there could be like one like community service project held by just a group, just a group of random youth. But that will happen every so often, and it just didn't happen enough. And so that's where I kind of just stepped forward and just decided to go with it and just kind of make it a better place for the upcoming youth, and hopefully kind of set that seed where it can grow into more and more, and hopefully it could spread to more than just the Wind River Reservation. And to the second part of your question, back home, I'm kind of seen as just a leader in general. I can help lead youth, or I'm a leader off the reservation to where I go to high school, and I'll just be a leader of like my own, whether it's on the reservation for just a community service project or in school. And I can help people, non-natives, I can help them with whatever they need. So it's just a leader in general.
Anyone else want to?
Yeah, I get your question. It's hard sometimes being young because they're like, oh, you're young, you still need adults in your life. We're not saying that we're going to start these initiatives on our own. We're not going to have any, like, if you're 30 or above, you're out. Like you can't join our party or anything like that. And we always, sometimes you have to remember the elders. Of course, the elders are number one. Those are the ones with the language. Those are the ones with the culture. Those who we look up to. But sometimes they forget about the youth sometimes. And sometimes youth know about youth. And so that's why we're just as important. So we have this hoop for Dakota people, and there's the 4 cycles of life, and it's not a pyramid like we see today's hierarchy in straight lines. It's a circle. Each one of them does their own role. And so for youth, our role is to understand who we are as youth and build each other up and listen to the elders and to the adults too. So sometimes, we forget about that. We forget how we're all the same and how we're all similar and we're all equal in that ways. And so I do see some of that happen sometimes. And you just have to keep working through it and keep saying, hey, I bring something to the table. Every youth has something to teach. Everybody's a teacher. If you just share it, then you're teaching somebody. And that's why, that's kind of how I deal with it and how I hope to get over that. And so now, currently we have people calling me and they asking me about the language because they didn't grow up with the language. And so I just was able to translate our whole new clinic that just opened in February all in the language. So each door has a different language in there. And it was really nice for somebody to come out, call me, and ask me for something like that.
And this morning, somebody was texting her, so she was on her phone recording, saying like, "Oh, this is how you say 100. This is how you say 1,000." So
yeah, in our Indian ed, he was like, "How do you say 100?" And he's Danae, and I was like, "Oh, Pete," and I just had to record my voice.
Well, listen, we are at about the end of our time. These 5 and our staff have a pretty tight schedule this morning to move around. They'll go from here up to the Capitol Hill and the Supreme Court. And I want to thank Patty and Sam for being on the executive committee of this organization. I thank all of you for participating this morning. I was thinking of one of my favorite quotes is from Robert Kennedy, and he said once, a long, long time ago, he said, "Each time a man or a woman stands up and speaks out to improve the lives of others, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope. And all those ripples from a million centers of energy and daring can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance." These are ripples of hope, I swear to you. They are just ripples of hope. that make me believe, despite all of the challenges, all of the difficulties, that there are people out there like these 5 young people working every day with the young people living on reservations and off reservations to improve the lives of Native American youth. It doesn't have to be the case that Native American youth should be left behind. We can change it, and you change it starting here with the ripples of hope from this class and the other class of Champions for Change on their reservations around the country, saying we're going to make a positive change in the lives of those with whom we live. So thank you very much. God bless you, and we're just so excited that you're here.
Oh, don't forget your Irish.
Thank you.
Oh, it's still open.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Let me step down really fast. Yeah, can you grab that and put that right here?
It's all open from this bottle.
What?